UFC 288 played out pretty much as we expected. Um, I'm starting to like be pretty good with like these predictions and stuff, you know. I just got lucky, I think. But I called a few of them. I called Charles Jourdain. That was pretty good. I called Mavzar as well. I called Piotr Jan's sister. I called Bilal too. I know y'all didn't predict Bilal to win against Burns, right? The only one I had wrong was the main event. So uh, it was a close main event. It was back and forth, and Cejudo looked good. You know, I saw a lot like the Conor McGregor video.
We're doing this really well, yeah? If you'd have just done it this way, man, you'd have fucking clean shot, bro.
I don't think Cejudo looked bad. I don't think he looked rusty or anything. It's a weird situation where it's just Aljamain was just a bit better. Crazy to say, because I truly believe that Cejudo was just a better fighter overall, like a better skilled, better complete fighter. I don't know, but I was wrong. I was wrong with Aljamain Sterling. It's like, you know, from what we saw from his championship run, right? He won the title via disqualification against Piotr Jan. Just that automatically, you know, put a bad rep on his name, right? Then he won the rematch in like this split decision, very close way, and you know, I think most of us wanted Piotr Jan to win, so there was a lot of hate on him. So that victory was kind of like, it was salt on the wound, you know. And yeah, like he did win, but it wasn't like an impressive knockout or an impressive submission where it's like, whoa, he really dominated here. So it's like we still doubted him a bit. Then he fought TJ Dillashaw, a one-arm dude, like still, you know, very lucky situation for him. And you know, I think a lot of us fans still had doubts as well. And I feel like last night's fight, there's no more doubts. There's no more there's nothing more that we can say really when he's done this like over and over again. Like he's just that type of fighter. He's not the type of fighter who's gonna get a fast knockout or a fast submission. I know he's done it, you know, with Corey Sandhagen. He's had a nice submission, but for the most part, he's not that type of fighter who's going to be like super explosive and super like electrifying with his performance. That's just who he is. But guess what? It works, bro. Like it works. It's crazy, man. I gotta understand how these dudes keep winning this fight, because he's not really elite in any area. He's not the greatest jiu-jitsu specialist. He's not the greatest boxer. He's not the greatest kickboxer. He's not the greatest wrestler. He's just decent in every area. And you know, you see a guy like Henry Cejudo, who's a Olympic gold medalist in wrestling, and he still can't compete. He still really can't impose his will as much. If there's a guy that is really complete, you know, unless it's like a Habib who's really like, you know, that wrestling on a complete other level where you can actually impose it to someone and keep them there. There's not a lot of dudes that are able to do that. And usually these special, how can I explain this? These specialties in the fighting games, like a fighter who has a specialty, like a Edson Barbosa with his kicking and kickboxing, right? Dudes like that are not really fully well-rounded, they usually always find a match and a guy that will, you know, find the weak spot, you know? But for someone like Aljamain Sterling, he doesn't have... just hear me out. He doesn't have great spots, but he also doesn't have weak spots in his game. You know what I mean? He's not like, there's nothing threatening about his fighting style. He's probably not going to knock you out. He doesn't have the crispiest combinations. He doesn't have like the slickest takedowns or anything. But he also doesn't have any holes in his game that you can exploit. So it makes him a very, very difficult fighter to fight. And I'm realizing that as I'm watching his fights, it's like he's better than we expected, but it's just not as flashy and exciting as we would like it to be, you know? So I actually saw a good video of Demetrius Johnson explaining the difference between MMA and boxing.
Mixed martial arts is the easiest sport to become a champion in, because when you fight boxing, it's boxing. Every person you fight in boxing is going to be good at boxing. Everybody you fight in kickboxing is going to be good at kickboxing. when you do mixed martial arts, you're gonna have people who have significant big holes in them, right?
I think he made some very great points in that video, you know, comparing it and basically explaining how becoming a boxing champion is much more difficult than becoming an MMA champion, because when you fight in boxing, you're fighting against other elite boxers. When you're fighting kickboxing, you're fighting against other elite kickboxers. But when you're fighting in MMA, you might, you know, often find yourself against a guy who has holes in their games that you can exploit. A good wrestler, but not really a good striker. We saw it with Kron Gracie. A good striker, but not the best grappling. We see it with guys like Edson Barbosa. And there's a lot of these dudes in MMA, right? So there's more ways to win. There's more ways to exploit it. And I think the best way to become the best MMA fighter is just to be complete. Not be a special, I don't know what's the word that I'm trying to look for, but you know, the type of fighter that is really, really good in one area, that isn't really useful in MMA. And we're seeing it with a guy like Aljamain Sterling, who's, in my opinion, almost mediocre with his striking, decent grappling, decent wrestling, but just overall good. Just overall really, really good defensively. And I think he reminds me a lot of Merab. It's sad that we can't see that matchup. I feel like him and Merab would be a very, very good, interesting matchup. It would probably sell 3 pay-per-views, but it would it would be an actually interesting clash of styles for the hardcore fans of MMA, just because we both see these dudes utilizing pretty similar tactics. Obviously, they're both in the same camp, I guess, so they both, you know, train the same way, train together and all this other stuff. But it would be really fun to see it, right? I don't think Aljamain's striking won him the fight. I don't think Aljamain's wrestling won him the fight. I just think it's his pressure. It's pushing the pace. It's just like being in front of Cejudo's face the whole time. That's what won him the fight. And it's gonna take someone like, it's gonna take a special fighter to be able to stop these dudes. It's gonna be a fighter that has the gas tank to go with the guys like Sterling and Merab. It's gonna take someone also with striking power, like very good power, that can like not only keep them away but scare them away from entering and just being reckless. And Cejudo doesn't have that. TJ Dillashaw might have had that in his prime, not anymore. Sean O'Malley doesn't have that. So for Sterling, Merab, like Petr Yan, he's a good striker, but doesn't possess the power to like scare someone away like Marlon Moraes, like Pedro Munoz. And those are dudes that beat Aljamain Sterling, guys that possess power and that are scary to be in front of. It takes a special fighter with special, unique skill set to be able to, you know, keep these guys away. It was a great fight. I think it's one of those fights where you're like, you can't really question Sterling anymore. You know what I mean? Like a lot of these other fights, the disqualifications, the one-arm fight, the split decision. I know it was also a split decision, but it's still like, you know, he stamps his name now. He beats one of the great, you know, bantamweight of all time, one of the greatest combat sports athletes of all time. We've said this again, but he's doing it, and as maybe boring as he's doing it pretty consistently now. So, and three title defenses is the most any bantamweight champion has ever had. So, hey, bro, it's crazy. It's crazy. But like I said, I think Sterling has had a pretty lucky ride, but that's not his fault. It's not like he chooses his opponent. I just think it's like the way it fits in front of him, and lucky for him, he's had very favorable matchups for him. And I think Cejudo was probably his toughest matchup, especially a healthy Cejudo. That was his toughest matchup. I don't believe Sean O'Malley can do anything to him, but that's just my opinion, and I guess we'll just have to figure it out. Maybe I'll be wrong, but yeah, we'll find out.